Blog Talk Radio.
And welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I am your host, Jeff Sherman, along with my other host, Dr. Eric Lopkin. And, I have been around the block, as I say, playing the back nine, and I'm concerned. I was not a big fan of President Obama, but I'm actually very concerned. There's so much to talk about, Dr. Lopkin, and for our listeners out there, that I'm very concerned that we have someone that's not capable of a job, that was put up by the swamp, to quote a Trump phrase, put up by the swamp, who's totally incapable. We've only had, less than 2 months in the job, and this thing is a disaster.
It really is. I mean, tomorrow is 2 months since the inauguration, and just picking off a couple of the things, we've seen gas prices spike, we've seen jobs lost, we've seen jobs moving to Mexico again, we've gotten into trouble. The Chinese are calling Biden out, the Russians are calling Biden out, the Canadians are angry with it. How bad a president do you have to be to anger the Canadians? I mean,
No, exactly, though. But isn't it bigger on a serious note that now the globalists are free to play? That they'll get us into some foreign entanglements, Syria, you know. Good luck. You're a smart guy. Go sort that one out, okay? So
we've
already
gone back into Syria.
No, I get it, with no real end game. Hello, circa Vietnam. But anyway, Biden you had someone that was a strict substitute teacher in there, which was Trump. Everyone hated him, the globalists, because they told him not to do this, that, and the other thing. Now you have Biden propped up by the media and by the globalists, and now it's game on. Am I not correct?
You are absolutely correct. In the past several weeks, aside from the domestic issues that he screwed up, we have seen aggressive action from Iran, Korea, Russia, China. We've lost all of the gains that we got under the Trump administration. And, Trump was his own worst enemy. I'm not going to say he was a fantastic president, but at least he put America first and looked out for our jobs and the middle class. And the Democrats just threw that all away because he wasn't a nice guy.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, we had the dumbing down of America. There's this whole thing of, Trump's not your boyfriend. He's not your husband. He's not your best friend. He was effective. Okay, that's out the door. Yes. Okay, we get all that because of the political correctness and all that. But I also believe that Trump was a nationalist, and he had globalist interests, and he was a big threat. Because globalist interests, corporate interests, have had free game for 30, 40 years. The decline of it, they don't care about the decline of America. It's all about we're going to sell more crap. Do they care if the market is China or America? Who cares? It's the stockholders. And now it's game on. The only thing I would have to say is that we do agree that in 2022, I believe, if they don't do some drastic things, that is, the Democrats, is to turn things around in terms of the electoral process, I believe they're going to have their head handed to them. They've gone a bridge too far, and it's only been 2 months. The whole thing, this is like if it was a movie, Dr. Lopkin, in 1985, and we saw a senile president who's got dementia, head of the United States, you would walk out and say, this is ridiculous. But welcome to the real world. Comments, Lopkin.
Well, remember that I believe it was 2021 was the year that the movie Mad Max, The Road Warrior, allegedly took place. And now you're seeing people up in arms. We've seen violence in Atlanta. There's continuing violence in the Pacific Northwest. The political correctness has gone so far that people are now resorting to violence because they're being shut down in conversation, and we can't do that. I mean, the violence that's going on is absolutely inexcusable.
Isn't it the plan, though? I mean, look at the Cultural Revolution in China. We're doing that 50, 40 years later. What's the difference? You're shut down. I'm saying, you have a contrarian viewpoint, you're done, dude. It's over. I mean, they've shut down free speech. You know, some of the things that they, you know, you're basically quarantined, not COVID related, but thought related, is something out of a joke 20 years ago.
It's absolutely astonishing to me. I mean, to give you an example of what's going on in China, the company Alibaba, China's biggest company and biggest capitalist success story, was very involved in the media. The Chinese Communist government has ordered them to divest the media because they're afraid the company is getting too much power in the media and they're not towing the communist line. So the government is stepping in and shutting down opposition journalism. This is no different than what's going on here. People are being shut down. Social media is going, oh, well, no, you can't say that. We're cutting off your account because you're not agreeing with what we say. And, you know, I absolutely encourage people to follow Project Veritas because these guys have videos from insiders in these companies where they have gotten on video the leaders of these companies talking about how they are shutting down people that don't agree with their point of view.
Point of view has to do with money. Follow the money. And it's all about globalism. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but that's exactly what it is. Trump was a huge threat to them, and now they have why would you limit yourself if you're Twitter or the social media to America? That's what, 1/10 of the world's possibilities in terms of monetarily. Yeah, open it up. And that's why they've cut people that have interfered in their global aspirations. And I believe that is absolutely true.
Now, you know, I do have to point out, you know, I am a business person. I own my own business, and I understand why you would want to open markets outside of America. So the idea of opening new markets is not necessarily a bad one. I mean, you keep yelling about globalization. You know, that's, you know, it's sort of being poo-pooed as, oh, it's this major evil. It isn't. But you do have to take into consideration the communities that have supported you. And, you know, during the Trump administration, the Conference Board, which is a group of the largest companies, all said, yes, we are changing the definition of what we do so that the community is an audience that we have to be accountable to. So, you know, we keep saying, oh, it's the, you know, businesses. The businesses are actually taking their lead from the politicians, not the other way around.
I just believe that Trump was a roadblock to their ultimate goal, there was no vested interest. You're a small business person that's completely different than AT&T and others. AT&T, who has holdings in CNN, you don't think they orchestrated that for a reason? Because Trump was a nationalist that got in their way in terms of their grand vision. It's something that is open to debate. Go ahead.
I know, you've been saying that for 4 years since Trump came in, and honestly, I think it's much more basic than that. I don't think it has anything to do with corporate interests or globalism. I think these are liberals, pure and simple. They were liberals before Trump came in. There'll be liberals up, and they could not handle the fact that somebody came in who was a political outsider who kept saying he was going to drain the swamp and drain them of their influence. I think that's what it was all about.
Part of the swamp is globalism. Part of the swamp are the same intelligentsia, and you know this because your father served in Vietnam, the morons that got us into Vietnam with no end game, no strategy. I even told my friend this, like, President Johnson was not the brightest bulb. Liberals always get the free pass about intelligence. But, yeah, you have Westmoreland updating him on what's the strategy for victory, and it's like, we're going to kill more of them than they're going to kill us. And you say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Hello. Yeah. So I believe that, yes, the same people that have profited at the middle class's expense now have a free pass with Biden. And they couldn't be happy.
Absolutely. They have been giving liberals a free pass for generations. I mean, again, this goes back to Johnson and even before that. But, FDR turned around how the world viewed the Democratic Party because he led us as commander-in-chief to victory in World War II. He got us out of the Depression. He put in all these social programs, which the Democrats had never supported before that. And he turned the image of the Democratic Party around. And unfortunately, his Democratic Party does not exist anymore. And the Democratic Party of JFK does not exist anymore. JFK would be thrown out for being too conservative.
FDR would be thrown out. You couldn't launch D-Day with Nancy Pelosi. They'd have, you need a landing craft with LGBTQ. You need an Hispanic one. And by the way, Hitler, just talk to him. He might just be misunderstood because of white oppression, and it would be impossible to launch an operation like that with the current Democratic Party. Am I not correct?
No, it would be, but what frightens me more than that is listen to what these Democrats are saying. Several of them have literally said, and you can Google this, look it up, but several high-ranking Democrats have actually suggested that Republicans be put in re-education camps. Okay, this is right out of the Nazi playbook.
Right out of Sherman Mao, by the way, the Cultural Revolution. Yes.
They are talking about stopping free speech, keeping people from expressing their opinions, and saying, Trump was the white supremacist. No, if you look at what the Democrats are doing, their actions are right out of the Nazi playbook, right out of Chairman Mao's playbook. It is absolutely ridiculous that they should even think that these are ways to encourage the nation to come together, that these are ways to move forward. No. Bad ideas need to be aired in public so that people can go, that's a very bad idea. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at Germany has a huge problem with anti-Semitism, a huge resurgence in neo-Nazis. Why? Because Germany refuses to allow people to discuss what the Nazis did. They shut down any, if you take a look at German websites, when they're talking about history, World War II is glanced over. You're not allowed to discuss the Nazi Party. Well, what did that do? It pushed the Nazis underground, and guess what? They're back.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And then there's a common enemy, which is liberalism, or whatever you want to call it, the Angela Merkels of the world, because they made it easy. Are we up against a break, Dr. Lopkin?
We are. We will be right back after this message.
To reach the next level, you need to operate at peak performance. The key to this is mastering the 7 elements of success. Learn how to master mindset, focus, operations, communications, innovation, evaluation metrics, and continuous improvement. Get the Biznetics Way at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and bookstores near you.
And we're back. And if you'd like to be part of this conversation, you can call us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
Well, as someone that is playing the back nine but still wants to enjoy his life, I am a little scared because I was less concerned, much less concerned with Trump, even though he had his mental shortcomings, psychological shortcomings. I'm a little scared because I think this is what happens when we get into a war. You have someone like Biden who miscalculates, not that he has the ability to calculate anything. He says something stupid. He does something stupid. He alienates someone, and then or he just appears to be weak and feeble, which is not hard to imagine. And China does something like move on Formosa, Taiwan. Russia starts consolidating, and then we have an overreaction. Am I weird on that or not?
Well, no, we're already seeing that. I mean, during the Trump administration, China was, quite frankly, afraid of Trump, and they reined themselves in. As soon as Biden took office, China started being more aggressive with Hong Kong, shutting down freedom of speech there, going against the agreement that they signed with the British when Hong Kong was transferred back to them. So you're already seeing them get more aggressive. I mean,
am I wrong in thinking of a miscalculation could happen easily?
A miscalculation
clearly Biden's not in control.
No, Biden is obviously not in control. What president has ever gone his first 2 months in office not taking any questions from the press? And any time a reporter asks him a question, his handlers rush him off. Obviously, his handlers know he can't handle questions. The reporters have been giving him a free pass. And we should be terrified that the Democrats backed him knowing this.
Well, the Democrats, wait a second, they're Lewinsky-lights. There's no difference. They don't want the betterment of America. They clearly put someone, and they orchestrated, by the way. They had Bernie, who just loves being in the limelight, Bow Wow, the whole thing. I don't want to rehash that. To think you love America when you know you clearly put someone in power that has dementia. Please explain that to me, Dr. Lopkin. And that's the only fact, and that's why I'm scared about. You got a guy that's like weekend at Bernie's, and he's in charge of the, at least for the time being, the most powerful country in the world.
The only explanation I can come up with was that it was a massive power grab because these folks care more about their careers and more about their power than they do the people that they are supposed to represent.
And that's my whole point. They could care less.
Hold on. Let's be honest about this. That's a bipartisan problem. It's not limited
not
to
to that degree. No, I really may be naive, but I really believe the Republicans would not put someone in who was clearly senile. You can talk about Reagan, but when he was first elected, he had his A game. The last 2 years, yes, he had dementia, he had Alzheimer's, whatever.
Yeah,
but
they
were not a
can't
willing
compare
partnership.
No, you can't compare it to Reagan because Reagan was at the top of his game for his first term. He was reelected when he still had his faculties, and it wasn't until halfway through his second term that he started having problems. So, they didn't knowingly put somebody in that had dementia.
And the Democrats did. That's a huge problem.
Yes. It's a major problem.
So,
and we're already
do they
seeing
own it? Do they own it,
blowback.
Dr. Lopkin? Do they own it? In
well,
2022, do they own it?
2022, they're going to get their asses handed to them because the public knows what they did. They know that fraud went on in these elections. And by the way, I mentioned Project Veritas earlier. Project Veritas has been investigating the fraud that happened in Minnesota. The New York Times claimed they were spreading misinformation. They filed a libel suit against the Times. Yesterday, the Supreme Court of New York threw out a motion to dismiss from the New York Times saying, no, you did not present this as an opinion. You tried to pass it off as fact. They can go forward with their libel suit. So now, little by little, facts are coming out that the media tried to hide about the fraud that went on in 2020.
Well, there's clearly fraud without any question. And you mentioned New York. I know we talked about in Carnivore Bites. I think it's hysterical to me that the media, the darling of the media was Cuomo. Remember, not so long ago, 6 months ago, he was going head-to-head with Trump, and he was positioned as the voice of reason, the intelligent one, and the adult in the room. That's completely imploded, and I believe he's going to either step down or be impeached. What do you think?
I think at this point it's more likely he's impeached. He's refused to step down. But this is also something that people should be paying attention to, because during the 2020 election, everybody said, Trump was against women. We have to mobilize so that we get him out. Biden has refused to condemn what Andrew Cuomo has done. 6 separate women have come forward, and this is not something that happened 25, 30 years ago like it was with Brett Kavanaugh's accuser. This is something that happened over the last several years while he was in office. These are people that worked for him, and yet the Me Too movement is sort of, we should investigate, but whereas with everybody else, if it was a Republican, that's it. No, he did it. He has to resign. Cuomo is
but you don't
fighting
think
this
that there's a problem here for our democracy? You clearly have someone that has issues. I'm not a psychologist. I don't really care to be one. Issues with women, with power, a clear abuser. And by the way, the lines have been blurred about what's truly sexual harassment. You could say, Jane, you got a nice dress on, and that's, you're like an animal, whatever. Okay, that's ridiculous. This guy is clearly an abuser of women. The definition of sexual harassment, as it should be. And where is the Me Too? What happened? What? Hello? What? Where are they? What?
Yeah,
am I missing something, Dr. Lopkin?
Rose McGowan, who was one of the first to take up the Me Too, she has come out and said Cuomo has to go. The people in the Time Out movement, which was spawned in Hollywood from the Me Too movement, they've been quiet. A lot of the folks, Alyssa Milano, who is a big push, someone who pushed the Me Too movement, has been silent. It's like, well, we have to see. It's obviously been taken over by people with a political agenda that has nothing to do with protecting women.
No question about it. But where's our vice president? She's supposed to be the spokesperson. She is the personification of women's power. She gave a speech or something a couple days ago, that centered on women's rights. And where she didn't hear anything about that.
No, she has not come out and said Cuomo should resign. She has avoided the question. Yeah, our first female vice president. We have a major crisis with a major Democrat accused of sexual assault. The AG of New York is investigating criminal charges. And I should point out that last year, New York passed a new law. Andrew Cuomo signed this into law. And under the terms of this law, one, the statute of limitations for these women to come forward has been greatly extended. And two, Cuomo's public apology can now be used as evidence of his guilt. So under the law that he passed, he has already given evidence of his guilt, and yet he refuses to step down. The vice president has said nothing. The president has said, well, we'll see where the investigation goes.
Which is pretty much, he as I tell my friends and associates, Biden doesn't say anything. It's his operatives that tell him what to say. But, I mean, isn't it really kind of true, which I believe, that if you're a liberal, you have a degree of freedom when it comes to sexual, I wouldn't say assault, but sexual malfeasance. You can say certain things to women that if you were a conservative, that would never fly. So there's an aura of, I'm Cuomo, I'm uber lib, I'm from the uber lib state. Doesn't that give me a little carte blanche?
There has
in my mind, at least. In my mind.
There is that double standard, and it's not just with sexual behavior. We saw just recently, and I'm forgetting the actress's name, but she's from The Mandalorian, a very popular show. She made a comment about this issue, saying, if you're a conservative, you're being shut down, and she actually compared it to being a Jew in Nazi Germany, and the next day she lost her job, she was fired, and the liberals in Hollywood actually proved her point for her.
Oh, there you go. I'm not so sure. Again, thank God I'm playing the back nine because we're headed for a very dangerous road in many ways. We have a president that is well beyond his A game. Not that he ever had an A game anyway. The margin of error for a miscalculation is enormous. And I think that we need to close on that. That's not a joke, is it, Dr. Lopkin?
No, it's not a joke at all. And we are up against our end time. So you've been listening to Carnivore Radio. You can catch us every Friday at 4 at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. You can also catch the replay as well as the Carnivore Bites podcast every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. So we look forward to being here again next week.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners.